Mark Steyn is an author and columnist and the subject of many attacks online since his last appearance on the show, including, I think, on Joy Reid's program over the weekend. So we thought he'd invite him back and ask him for a response. How you doing, Mark?
Hey, I'm doing great, Tucker. Fascinated to hear about your great-grandfather from Switzerland in 1860. It's interesting to me that actually one of the things I like about you, Tucker, one of the few things is that you don't, when you discuss immigration, you don't go on about your great-grandfather. And it's interesting to me that because most people say, oh well, you know, people attack immigration. My great-grandmother got off the boat at Ellis Island in 1979. And 6 weeks later, she was the third orphan on the right in the Broadway production of Annie, singing "The Sun Will Come Out Tomorrow," and that's the American dream right there. They either do that, or they say, well, you know, I've got a Venezuelan pool boy, and he's the hardest working chap I know. So what's the problem with immigration? And in fact, you're the only one, because you're one of the few people who doesn't discuss it in terms of your great-grandfather. MSNBC has hired somebody to find out who your great-grandfather is and hang him round your neck. And as you pointed out, this is completely preposterous. There were lots of things we needed in 1860. Your great-grandfather, buggy whips, the Transcontinental Railroad, oxen, and oddly enough, 160 years later, we need less of all those things, apparently, except immigration. This is absurd.
Well, what's so interesting is how there's no real response other than to the personal. I mean, I know the temptation when you get upset about something to try and hang it on a person's personal hang-ups or his personality or his background or whatever, but you try to pull back and ask what principles are at stake here and ask obvious questions like, how does this help the Americans already here? I cannot get, I'm not just saying this, every night, I cannot get a real answer to that from anybody, ever. Not one.
No. Well, it is this resistance to talking about it in public policy. I had something similar after I was on your show last week. There's all these people who are suddenly going online and pointing out that I'm Canadian. It was the first I'd heard of it. I was stunned. Who knew? Apparently, the MSNBC genealogist had been in touch with the Vital Statistics Office in the Dominion of Canada. I was stunned. The fact is, it's public policy. I go to Rosengård in Sweden, and what I see there, I think, is a tragedy for the Swedes, who'll be an ethnic minority in their own country by mid-century. I go to Molenbeek in my mother's country of Belgium, and I think that's a tragedy. And actually, just to save the MSNBC House genealogist a bit of time, I happen to be an Irish-Belgian-Canadian, which is one of the smaller parades down Main Street every year. But in the scheme of things, there is very little difference between Irish Catholics and Irish Protestants. Yet that has caused tragic bloodshed in our lifetime. There is very little difference in the scheme of things between Francophone Quebecers, a half-hour north of me here in northern New England, and Anglophone Canadians. Yet 20 years ago, in the 1990s, a majority of Francophone Quebecers voted that they didn't want to be part of the same country as Canadians. And so putting aside race, small group differences can have huge consequences. And that's why I come back to a point I make a lot on your show, Tucker, that when you're talking about public policy, it's best to err on the side of prudence. And if we can't, and the Democrats all the time are about how, as we've just established with Joy Reid, it's not that you can't talk about this subject, it's just that as Joy sees it, only certain people can talk. So she can say the Democrats should give up on white rural voters and just focus on black voters. Kirsten Powers, Democrat, can say on election night 2012 that this is about the browning of America. Bob Beckel on election night can talk, another Democrat can talk about the white vote. So what Joy and co are saying is that basically they can talk about it incessantly, but just that nobody else can.
Yeah, I'd rather not play by those rules, and we're not going to. And neither are you, which is why we love you. Mark Steyn, thank you.
And it's not in good faith, Tucker, which is what your show, in fairness, is.
Well, thanks. I appreciate that. Good to see you.